G'day folks, thanks for joining me. I'm Bohemian Bourgeoisie and today we'll be discussing Book 1, Part 2 of Frank Herbert's Dune. So if this is your first time here on the channel, I've already covered the first 10 chapters of Dune, and this will be covering chapters 11 through till 22. Before we get started, if you could like, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, and share, it would help me out enormously. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Honestly, I don't have too much to say at the moment, so I reckon we can just get into the thick of it, hey? So, I did a really dumb thing. I'm such a fuckwit. I'm actually fuming about this. I spoiled myself, and I think it's a pretty big spoiler. I didn't mean to do this at all, obviously, if you can't tell. But I went online, I did like a quick Google, which I thought would be totally innocuous. I was looking up something about Baron Harkonnen, and I just happened to learn by accident that he is Jessica's father. Oh, for fuck's sake. God damn it. I hate spoiling myself. Oh, Jesus Christ. That was kind of a mystery that was really intriguing me. That was a mystery that I was really kind of like invested in, I don't know, puzzling out myself if I could. I brought it up a few times on here. Like I was just like, okay, so what's the deal with her parentage? Why do they keep talking about her parentage? The fact that they mentioned it a couple of times, it has to mean something. And I thought that she was going to be related to the Atreides, but no, she's a fucking Harkonnen. I don't know anything else about it beyond that. Anyway, it is what it is. Moving on. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. On a lighter note, this is just a bit silly. Well, actually, it's not entirely silly. It's kind of cool. You know how yesterday I said that I went on CoStar and it told me not to do palm fronds. And I was like, fuck, what? That's like some weird synchronicity. And it told me to do stripes, so I wore stripes. So today I go on CoStar and fucking, can you read this? Is that not like exactly the fucking fear is the mind killer little mantra of Paul's? That blew my goddamn mind. It also said, in things to do, chapter books, and tie-dye. So here I am reading a chapter book and wearing tie-dye. It also said not to do talking heads. So, whoops. hopefully this guy doesn't fall in on me for doing this, but you know. So here I am, repping another ensemble for you chosen by the stars. Anyway, moving on. Let's get into the thick of it. Oh, this is a big one actually. So did I read 3 chapters? Yeah, I read 3 chapters and the middle chapter just went on for 5 fucking years. So, alright, let's get going. Chapter 11, we catch up with the Duke. He's all by himself and he's having like a real navel gaze of a moment, which I don't begrudge him that at all. I don't use the term in a disparaging way. I think we should all have a bit of a navel gaze every now and then. You can really feel the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders in this chapter. He keeps repeating this mantra. They tried to take the life of my son. He's fuming about it. He's furious. And it keeps coming back to him throughout the chapter. It just like, pops up. He can't escape his fury over this incident. And he reflects on the private note that the Emperor sent to him, and it was shady as fuck about the Fremen. You're getting this sense that his quote unquote superiors have no regard for the Fremen, and therefore they will have no regard for him and his endeavors to try and like make friends with them, make peace with them, and utilize them to his own goals. So he's staring up at the stars and realizes that, you know, one of these stars is his old home world, which he's never going to get back to. He as well, like everyone else is saying, like, no, Duke Leto's done for, he's doomed. And in this chapter, you really get the sense that he thinks so as well. Like, he feels this trap that's around him, and he's just like, okay, well, like, the best thing that I can do is just make things good for Paul, which is really heartbreaking. He's really wondering why he's bothering with this whole ordeal, because it's like, it's not actually what he even really wants for himself. He has this moment of just being like, all right, let's topple the aristocracy, eat the rich, eliminate class divides. But of course, that's not going to happen. He's in too deep. He has to stay the course. I'm actually really feeling for him in this moment, more so than I have prior. I feel like this is the first time that we're really seeing a lot of things from the Duke's perspective. It's all been other people observing the Duke, and now it's the Duke actually kind of looking at the situation that he's in, and he's just like, you know that meme of Ben Affleck just like having a durry outside and just being like, that's the energy that the Duke is bringing in all of these chapters. He goes and has a chat with Gurney. He wants Gurney to convince some of the old Harkonnen staff to stay on and stay working for them. And there's some great character work for Gurney in these chapters. A head full of songs, quotations, and flowery phrases, and the heart of an assassin when it came to dealing with the Harkonnens. Brilliant. Gurney in a nutshell. Good old mate Gurney. And then once again, the Duke's just like walking through his men, putting on this brave face, like this brave face of confidence. Because he says, like, you know, leadership must always have this air of confidence. Otherwise, you know, like it all just like crumbles. You need kind of the pageantry, or else no one will follow you. And then finally, like, he just gets into the lift. He's finally able to just like chuck away all of this kind of like bravado just for like a minute, and he just like sinks into his despair, and he's just like, he does the Ben Affleck thing. Like, I mean, I get it as well. You know, you have to like snatch those little moments of being weak. You know, we can't be strong all of the time. So, like, straight into the next chapter, and this, oh my god, this goes for fucking ever, so bear with me. I'll skim through all of the main points quick as I can, but there's some important exposition stuff, and there's also, like, a lot of important character stuff in here. So it starts off, Leto and Paul are discussing the assassination attempt. And Leto is just like fucking fuming about it. He's laying all of the blame on Hawat. And Paul's just like, nah, mate, chill out. It wasn't Hawat. It's because of Hawat that I was actually able to escape with my life. Let's trust Hawat. He's never led us wrong before. At that moment, Hawat bursts in, and he's just like fully throwing himself on the sword. And like, honestly, thank God that Paul had just managed to dispel the tension, because if he'd come in 30 seconds earlier, I fully think that Leto would have just let him do it. Like, he would have just been like, right, yep, you're resigning, off you go. And okay, so this is interesting as well. In the previous chapter, Paul was suspicious of Hawat. He was like saying, oh, do you think he might be the traitor? And Jessica was going like, no, trust Hawat, he's a good guy. So, like, you know, you've got Jessica, who has influenced Paul, and now Paul, who has influenced Leto. There's a nice little what's that game? Frog leaping? Is that what it is? When you like, I don't know if that's the right analogy. I guess it's like a trickle down effect of trust and wisdom from Jessica. So that's nice. It's nice to see Jessica's influence even when she's not around, I guess. And Leto's just like, okay, cool. Do you feel good getting that out of your system? You old drama queen? Great, cool. Let's get on with the work. So Hawat brings his men in, and from Leto's perspective, we see that he just like reads the room. He sees that everyone's exhausted, and he just gives like this brief little icebreaker just to kind of like lift morale. Then we switch to Paul's perspective, and we see that he just like reads his father like a book. He's watching all of the like subtle little ways that Leto leads and inspires. I haven't really spoken too much about Paul yet, or I haven't spoken much about Paul's interiority yet, I guess. But he's incredibly sharp, incredibly observant, and this is obviously a combo of his Bene Gesserit training and his Mentat training. Fuck, man, I wish that I was this self-aware when I was 15 years old. Like, instead of just thinking that I was incredibly self-aware, you know? So anyway, Hawat tells us that things are going really well with the Fremen so far. Like, everything seems to be going along well for them to be allies. So straight away we're seeing like Leto is making friends, building bridges where previously the Harkonnens have just been like massive fuckwits. We also learn that the Fremen, they're either like loyal to this person or worshipping this deity named Leet, which, hear me out here, maybe kind of sounds a little bit like Leto. I don't know. This is probably a little bit too far-fetched, but I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking because Paul and Jessica they're these kind of like messiahs, or Paul certainly is a messiah. I don't know about Jessica. But she's a prophecy baby as well. So like maybe the Fremen also have a prophecy involving Leto, and it's just kind of like the name has changed over generations. I don't know. Actually, saying it out loud, that's probably just stupid bullshit. Okay. Ignore that. It's like, I bet you it's probably just going to turn out to be like the name of this king sandworm or something. So there's these smugglers, and they're just like stealing all of these fucking like wagon loads full of spice, and Leto's just like, we're never going to stop like smuggling. You know, we're wasting money and resources trying to stop smuggling. Instead, let's just like go to them, be like, we don't give a shit, do what you do, just like pay us a tithe, and we'll just call it even. And the Harkonnens have been making serious bank on Arrakis. They make 10 billion per year, and everyone just like shits themselves about this. They're just like, wait, what? And Leto's just like, yeah, no shit. So like, let's just stop pretending that the Harkonnens are just going to give up this planet. Like, they've got some bullshit planned for us. We need to be prepared for that. As is, they've left them with like barely any working harvesting machinery. To begin with, they actually won't be making a profit at all. They've got to sort of like take a bit of a hit until for like a couple of years at least, until they can sort of get new equipment, repair the existing equipment. And there's one dude who's just like having a bit of a snit about it. And Leto is just like, mate, just call a fucking ambulance, alright? Just nut up, let's get the job done. Apparently there are also just these huge fucking worms that can just like cripple the entire factory in just like one gobble. They can just go whoop and eat the lot of them. And they can't use their shields because if they like I'm guessing like the vibrations in the shields just like set the worms off and they go into a feeding frenzy. Then finally, after like 5 years of conversation, Duncan Idaho comes into the room. We meet Duncan Idaho on page for the first time. We've heard a lot about him, but he's been off with the Fremen, making peace, forging connections, I suppose we can say. he'd taken a force of Harkonnen mercenaries who were disguised as Fremen, and in the tussle, one of their like one of their allies, who was a legit Fremen, he was injured and ended up dying. And Duncan, before he died, Duncan caught him trying to dispose of this object, and he pulls it out, and it's a crysknife. And all of the dudes around the table are just like, "Oh shit, fuck yeah, we've got this crysknife," because they're legendary. But the Fremen, they guard them. They take these crysknives really seriously, and one has never actually left the planet. So they're incredibly valuable. The Harkonnens are offering $1 million for just one blade. Yeah, so they're just like, let's have a look at this knife, and then this one Fremen whose name was, what was his name? Stilgar. This one Fremen named Stilgar comes into the room, and he's just like, get fucked, all of you. You ain't shit. Do not unsheath that blade. It's not for your eyes. The guys around the table, they're just getting all uppity, and they're just like, who the fuck are you? You don't tell us what to do. But Leto is just like, nah, guys, we need this Fremen alliance more than we need to look at this knife. This is cool, this is chill. Give us time to prove to you that we're worthy of looking at this knife. Stilgar spits on the table in between them. And once again, everyone just blows their lid. They jump to their feet, and they're just like, oh shit, what is this huge disrespect? And Duncan Idaho just cuts the tension, and he's like, no guys, you don't get it. This is Arrakis. Water is valuable. They don't just waste it on a whim. This is him showing a mark of deep respect to the Duke. So they're kind of sizing each other up as equals in a sense. Stilgar wants Duncan Idaho to enter into his service. Leto is just like, is this what you want? And Duncan's like, yep, I do. Can I serve both masters? And Stilgar's just like, yeah, I guess there's precedence for this. Leet serves two masters. But I'm gonna repeat my favorite phrase. I gotta wonder what that means. I guess we'll find out. But no one at the table really pays too much attention to it. They're just like, all right, cool, yeah, chill. Off they go together. That's pretty much the end of that chapter. Or maybe I just tuned out after that. I think there actually was a few more pages of discussion, but I was just so burnt out. So I hope that nothing important happened. I was just it was like fucking reading the Council of Elrond in Lord of the Rings. That's an interesting scene in the movies, but I remember the first time I read the book, I was just like, holy fuck, will this chapter never end? And this chapter was a little bit like the Council of Elrond for me. I was just like, and another issue brought to the table. But anyway, onwards and upwards. We go to chapter 13, and thank fuck, it's a really short one. Oh, actually, before we get right into the meat of the chapter, I want to talk a little bit about mentats, because I don't feel like I didn't cotton on immediately to what mentats were. I still don't feel like I know what they are, but I was thinking okay, so are they the head of security for royal houses, or are they master assassins? And that may be a part of it, but the vibe that I'm getting is that we know that in this future they don't have computers anymore. So is a mentat just kind of like a human computer, or do that's not the right way of putting it. Mentats have developed to take their place. They're master statisticians with all of the data that they have. They can kind of calculate all possible outcomes, I guess. So they act as advisors. That's certainly the sense that I'm getting from Leto, and also from Piter with the Harkonnen. There was this sense of them just kind of being human calculators in a way. So anyway, onto the chapter. It has Hawat coming to Leto, and he's just like, mate, I've got some bad news for you. It's what we learnt about in chapter 2, the false lead that the Harkonnens have laid down to implicate Jessica as the traitor in their midst. Leto is just like fucking gutted about the last thing that he needed at this point. Like he's had the worst fucking day, and he's just like, are you fucking serious? And he's furious at first. Like he's angry with Hawat, and he doesn't believe it. Like he doesn't believe it, but there's like the seed has been sown. Now he's just like, oh, like it would be my luck, right? After the day he's had, he's just like, I mean, I believe anything at this point. He's just not in a good headspace, essentially, to put it bluntly. And he really doesn't seem to be the type that would go into therapy, sadly, because I really do think that he would benefit from it. But something tells me he's just going to have like this alpha male mentality, and he'll shoulder the burden and keep it all bottled up, just like my dad. He goes for a walk by himself, and he watches the sunrise, and for the first time, he sort of like is able to comprehend the beauty of Arrakis watching the sunrise. But at the same time, he thinks to himself like, yeah, but it's also just like a fucked up place at the same time. So he's like, he doesn't know where his head's at. He doesn't know what to make of anything. He can't make heads or tails of anything at the moment. Although it kind of gives me the vibes of that Futurama episode where they go to the moon and Leela looks out the window and sees the beauty of the moon for the first time. But anyway, that was it. That was that was a big one. I had fun with that. I will leave it there because it's so late and I'm tired. So, on to chapter 14. This is another really short one. It's Leto and Paul having a chat. Okay, so yeah, good news. Leto has taken my advice and he's going into therapy. Bad news, he's using his son as his unwilling, unqualified therapist. I jest, but I get it. Like, I understand Paul is the heir. He needs to know what's going on. Leto needs to be able to confide in him, of course. And so that, like, if anything happens, since, like, Leto can just basically, he can just see the sword of Damocles just dangling over his head. He knows he could just die at any point. So Paul does need to be in on things so that if something happens to Leto, he can follow through. But this is Paul's first time seeing behind the curtain, and he's just like, he just doesn't know how to deal with it. He's just like sitting back like, fuck man, like my dad is just really going off the deep end. Okay, so there was a quote at the chapter header, which I feel really, beautifully sums up. There is probably no more terrible instant of enlightenment than the one in which you discover your father is a man with human flesh. Which, yeah, like that is just essentially the theme of this chapter, well, and of the last few chapters of Leto crumbling and Paul noticing and just being like, okay, cool, not cool. It's really not cool. Things aren't going well for Paul Leto, and I imagine things probably won't be going so well for Paul soon either. Like, Leto is not sparing him at all. We're getting right into the nitty-gritty of it. He's just like, my life is just one constant shitstorm followed by another shitstorm, and you're next in line. So enjoy. In particular, he discusses that he has decided, no, Jessica, she's above reproach. I don't believe that she has betrayed me at all. But he is going to go along with this trap that the Harkonnens have laid for him. He's going to let them believe that he's fallen for it. We don't get details exactly on what it is exactly he's going to do, but he says that he can't let Jessica in on the plan. he wants her reaction to whatever he's going to do to be genuine. So this is what he's saying to Paul, is like, if anything happens to me, you have to tell your mother that it was all just a big act. So we don't know what it is exactly he's going to do, but I guess, like, I don't know, he's going to like publicly denounce her or some bullshit. I hope he doesn't have it like fucking like scourged and marched through the streets or some bullshit, but that's probably a little extreme. I don't think he'd do that to her. But this, I have to say, this does kind of seem a little bit like a plot contrivance. You know, I think that from everything that we know of Jessica, she's very capable, she's very clued in, she, you know, presumably is a very good actor as well, with her Bene Gesserit training. I think Leto could probably just tell her. He could just like confide in her and be like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Try to act surprised. But like, whatever, you know, I'll allow the plot to happen, because of course a story with no drama is not a story which is worth reading or indeed vlogging. So here we go. I'm complaining because Frank Herbert is giving me something to do. So another thing that Leto advises is he encourages Paul to... Is this chair really creaky? Is that... I'll try not to move. He encourages Paul to lean into the Messiah prophecy, just being like, is just like, well, this, we don't know what's going to happen, but this might actually save your life one day. So it would behoove us to just hoodwink these poor native people and just pretend to be their god. Why not? Which, like, I get, like, you know, they're just hedging their bets, I guess. If you know that you're in dangerous territory and there's a group of people there whose help you are actively seeking, who believe that you might be their messiah, I mean, fucking lean into it, of course. Into the next chapter, the 15th chapter of this book, and it's another doozy of a long one. Shit. Okay. So this is the Cliff Notes version of it, of course. I might make it even more Cliff Notey than usual because there was a lot to get through. So we meet with Dr. Kynes, who is an ecologist, or as he prefers the old title, a planetologist. He works for the Padisha Emperor. The Emperor is against the Atreides, so he has ordered Kynes to betray them. And Kynes is aware of this prophecy. Kynes has essentially gone native, was the term that they use. He is living amongst the Fremen, has been welcomed and accepted into their culture, and you know, he has the blue eyes, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if he specifically thinks of himself as a Fremen, but he certainly is looking at Paul and Leto with this kind of like air of arrogance. You know, as they're walking towards him, he's just like, oh, who are these fuckwits with their Ponzi capes? You know, they won't last a day out here. But then almost immediately he starts to realize that he kind of underestimated them. So, okay, for one thing, he knows, of course, about the prophecy, being, you know, living amongst the Fremen. So he prides himself on being a man of science. He's just like, I guess, which is one way in which he differs from the Fremen. But he is just like, nah, prophecies are bullshit. This, you know, like, I don't believe it. But he has to admit to himself that, like, Paul does eerily fit a lot of the criteria of it. And oh my gosh, so when Leto and Paul first arrive to meet him, he's like fully just thinking all of these like really deadly, resentful, treacherous thoughts, and the whole time I'm just sitting here like, mate, Paul is going to read you like a book. You have to be more careful with a Bene Gesserit Mentat trainee. Which I suppose, like, I don't know how like public the knowledge is that Paul is receiving this training is. I guess probably not that public, since the Reverend Mother didn't even seem to know. So Kynes is super fucking salty towards the Duke and entourage. Like the Duke thanks him for the still suits that he's given them. These are the things that I've seen the pictures of with the nostril guards. The Duke thanks him for these still suits, but he's just like, are these actually necessary? Like we can bring our own water with us. We're not going to be gone long. And Kynes is just like, mate, you don't know shit. Take a seat. Listen to the professionals. And Gurney's just like, he's just about to throw hands over this. Fucking good old Gurney. He's a nice guy, but he's a bit intense sometimes. And Leto's just like, no mate, no, don't worry Gurney, it's all good. Let's chill out. I'll take your advice, mate. Cheers, let's go. And Paul, just out of instinct, on a whim, he quotes a line from the OC Bible saying, the gift is the blessing of the giver. And without realizing, this is also a line from the prophecy that has to do about him. So he's quoting this prophecy in front of Kynes and a bunch of Fremen that have come with him. And the Fremen just fucking, they lose their shit. You know, they are about to start worshipping him on the spot, essentially. And Kynes is just like, shut the fuck up, just like, Paul. And I really want to hear the actual prophecy, like in its entirety. It's bothering me that we haven't yet. I mean, I suppose it's probably just, speaking of plot contrivances, this is probably another plot contrivance that we haven't heard it yet because it will probably spoil stuff, because we know that it doesn't seem to imply good things for Jessica. But in a more meta sense, it just it pisses me off that there's this prophecy that they keep fucking talking about, but we as a reader just don't actually know what the details are. And you know what it reminds me of is the prophecy in the Star Wars prequels about Anakin, or possibly not Anakin. I know there's debate about who it is actually about in the end, but the one that they talk about, that there's someone who will bring balance to the Force, and that it drove me crazy that in 3 fucking movies there's this prophecy which is a big deal within the story, but we never actually find out what the entirety of the prophecy is. Is it literally just, you know, back in the dawn age of the Jedi, some prophet was just like, oh yeah, BT dubs, someone eventually will bring balance to the Force. That's it? Is it just that handful of words, or is there more to it? Are there T's and C's saying, you know, on the 4th day of a red moon, etc., blah, 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 blah. This is probably not the platform for me to go off about all of the issues I have with the Star Wars prequels. We can save that for another video. We can get back into Dune and this particular prophecy. But okay, I feel like the Atreides themselves, they should probably look into it, you know, particularly since Leto has said to Paul, lean into this prophecy, embrace it, make them think that you are the Messiah that they're expecting. They should just find a Fremen and sit him down, buy him a beer, and just be like, tell us exactly what is involved with this prophecy. How does Paul fit the criteria? What does it mean will happen in the end? Because that would be the smart thing to do, right? Anyway, back to the story. Paul quotes the prophecy, and Kynes is just like, oh, talk about coincidence. Because he's trying, at this point, he's trying really hard to not believe the prophecy. And interesting again, Paul had this sense a few chapters back that the Bible UA gave him will come in handy. And here it is. He probably wouldn't be quoting the Bible if he hadn't been reading it on the trip. So yeah, that Bible is already showing its worth. I wonder if it'll come up again. So Kynes inspects the still suits of Leto and Paul. And Leto had gotten everything wrong, you know, Kynes has to make a heap of adjustments. He's like, nope, you've got it too tight in the armpits, you've made it too loose around the chest, etc., etc. And then he goes to Paul, and Paul had just, through his Mentat and Bene Gesserit training, when he was putting the suit on, he just kind of he understood, like instinctively was like, oh, okay, yeah, stands to reason. This goes here, that goes there. But Kynes doesn't know that. And so all he sees is that Paul is just like put on this still suit perfectly on the first go. And he's like, wait, what the fuck? Because there, another aspect of the prophecy that we learn is that Paul will adjust to Fremen lifestyle as though he were born to it. So yeah, another instance of Kynes just being like, okay, this is eerily, spookily astute. No, couldn't possibly be a prophecy. Prophecy, never heard of it. Let's go. So they all get into a what do they call it again? Like a thropter or something. They get into a flying machine and fly out over the shield wall into the desert because they're going to oversee the harvesting of some spice. On the way there, Leto sees like a dot in the sky, and he starts getting really paranoid. He calls back to base. He's like, "What the fuck is this dot?" And it turns out it's just an eagle. It's a bird flying out over the desert, and it's nothing to worry about. But yeah, another instance of Paul just being like, "Oh shit!" Like he's seeing the cracks appear, and he's just like, "Yeah, fuck, Dad's really paranoid. This is not going to get better by itself." We get a bit of good exposition on the sandworms. Everyone's wondering whether the sandworms actually have something to do with spice. So I guess it turns out I know that the sandworms shit out the spice, and that's where it comes from. But no one else seems to realize that. So I guess that was a spoiler. So like they out to the factory, it's processing this huge haul of melange. For some reason, I'm imagining it to look like the sand crawlers in Star Wars, the Jawa sand crawlers. And I'm like, is that because of something in Jodorowsky's Dune? Might be. Like I know that a lot of the concept art that came from Jodorowsky's Dune went on to then inspire art in other sci-fi properties. So maybe this is one. And Leto, suddenly he sees on the horizon there's a sandworm approaching the factory. So they call it in. There's meant to be a rescue ship to come out and lift the factory up to sort of like hover there until the sandworm passes. But it's not coming. No one can get in touch with it. So Leto lands with his escort and he commands all hands in the factory just to abandon ship and come out, and he'll whisk them off to safety. They have to like chuck out a whole bunch of seats and equipment and stuff so that the aircraft will be light enough to carry everyone. But they do, everyone gets on board, they fly away just in time, and this giant sandworm just like comes along, just sucks up the entire factory just in one go. And like, I'm just sitting back like, oh mate, you just ate your own shit. Anyway, as they're flying away, Paul notices there are these just two figures trekking out across the sand by themselves. He's just like, those are Fremen down there. Kynes and the factory workers kind of like snap around. They're like, what? Fremen? Who said Fremen? No, we don't know Fremen. Definitely couldn't be. Which I'm not sure why. I don't know why it's a problem if there were Fremen there or not. But Paul is just like, nah mate, I saw what I saw. Finally, and Kynes sort of begrudgingly, he has to admit, okay, Leto actually acted really honorably then. He was less concerned about losing this huge haul of spice than he was about the lives of his workers. He actually risked his life and his heir's life to touch down and save these men. This guy's legit. Okay, cool. I might actually like him. Straight away, there's a bit of character development just in Kynes' first chapter. It will be interesting to see if Kynes does end up betraying them, or maybe he'll become a good ally of theirs. I hope so. They need some allies from the looks of things. Things aren't going too well for the Paul Atreides. Chapter 16. We're only going to do one chapter today because it's a fucking big one. We're having a little sit down at the Atreides household, a casual little soiree. Jessica has invited a bunch of one percenters over, much to Leto's chagrin, with the double-barrel goal of making some alliances and also to just weed out all of the secret Harkonnen loyalists. But before he meets with the assembled crew, Leto is just snatching another little private moment in the dining hall. And the text takes a moment to pause with him and reflect on the portrait of his father and the bull's head, replete with dried blood on the horns, which are on either side of him. Frankie H specifically refers to these things as talismans. I'm still not 100% on the intended symbolism here, but in the next paragraph, we move on to the poison snooper, which is suspended above the table. And Leto's just having this another just like little dissociative moment where he's just like, I can't fucking believe that I live in this kind of a world where I can't even trust my own staff or my dinner guests not to poison me at my own dinner table, you know? So like might be a stretch. I'm wondering if these three things have something in common. The poison snooper above and the portrait and bull's head on either side of him is this sort of like, is the poison snooper kind of like represents his present circumstances of just like, you know, I mentioned before, like he has the sword of Damocles above his head, and this is sort of similar. And his father's portrait, which kind of symbolizes his past, which then might lead one to think that the bull's head represents his future. All signs point to him going in for a sticky end very soon. So I don't know, maybe that's the only idea I have at the moment. So we learn about this Harkonnen custom that Leto has been expected to continue. The dinner guests, as they're coming into the dining hall, there are these basins outside the door of water, and they're meant to just sort of like slop some water onto the ground and you know, wash their hands and then wipe their hands. It's a bit convoluted. They wipe their hands with these towels and then drop the towels in the puddle of water that they've slopped. And so these towels soak up the water, and then beggars, while they're eating, beggars will kind of like creep onto the property and snatch these towels away. Yeah, so like the Harkonnens are essentially just like flexing against the poor in their own city of just being like, yeah, this is the water that we're gonna give to you. Where, you know, you can just take our like fucking slops and our dirty hand water. Leto is just spewing about this. He's just like, are you fucking serious? This is cooked. We are not taking part in this at all. I'm putting my foot down here. This is not continuing on my watch. Like even the servant who he tells this to, she's outraged by this because, you know, he realizes like, oh, okay, like she was actually going to sell these towels and she was going to make a profit. And it's just so fucked up that, you know, like this woman, this servant, she's so much closer to being a beggar than she is to being like one of the 1% nobility. But, you know, she is still kind of taking part in this fucked up economy. It's better to be like a bottom rung on the ladder, I suppose, than to be like on the ground, the dirt beneath the ladder. After this, Leto goes to meet with his guests, and pretty much immediately he just wishes that he hadn't. He he fucking hates these people, and you can just tell it is taking the last ragged shreds of his patience just to share the same oxygen as them. He honestly, really, he should be using this dinner as a PR opportunity, which is what Jessica is doing and Paul is doing. But he can't bring himself to smarm up to these fuckers. And he actually, like, a little bit later, he raises a toast, then pours his water out on the ground rather than drinking it, because the custom is the assembled guests also have to tip their water out rather than drink it. And they all just like, they all balk at the concept of wasting their own water. So like, you know, it's really interesting that they you know, they're fine. They're fine with like slopping some water on the ground if it helps to reinforce the status quo. But when it's their own water and they're thirsty, then they're like expecting to drink it. They're just like, oh fuck, like, oh, what do we do? Like, you know, they really hesitate. And you know, Jessica's sort of like watching around the table and kind of gathering all of their varied reactions, but no one's impressed except for kind of Kynes is there, and Kynes doesn't waste his water. Kynes tips his water into like this secret container that he had in his jacket, and he's very brazen about it as well. He just like stares Jessica down and he's just like, yeah, what of it? I'm not fucking wasting water. But I think he was kind of, I got the impression that Kynes was sort of like, he was having a bit of a chuckle to himself about it. He was just sort of like, you know, Kynes is kind of, I get the sense that Kynes is sort of on side a little bit. I really hope that he's going to be with the Atreides now, then that he'll just betray the Emperor and just be a champ. We've got, I'll just go through the guests. We've got this smuggler who's named Esmar Chewik. And he seems to be in league with Kynes, and Jessica wants to cozy up to him just in case they need to use him as like a backdoor out. That, you know, she's just like, well, shit, we might actually need to like evacuate in a hurry. There is a water shipper named Lingar Butte who is just like king fuckwit. He knows that he has all of the power on Arrakis, so he's just throwing his weight around all the time. He's just like, oh, better be careful or I might just accidentally on purpose keep all the water to myself and let everyone else die. So yeah, there's this one moment where Jessica says she's keeping the conservatory as a trust for the people of Arrakis until such time as Arrakis can sustain life. You know, she says that is our greatest wish, is for Arrakis to be like a fertile enough place that we can just like plant these out in the open. They won't die. And this really pisses Butte off, but Kynes is into it because once again, Jessica has stumbled into the prophecy without realizing it. Anyway, there's also a banker who Jessica, she immediately just pegs him as a Harkonnen agent. He calls himself Susu, and there's this, it's like a nickname. And there's this hilarious moment where it literally just made me lol. Jessica just like cuts off her own inner monologue. Just like mid-sentence, she's just like, what sort of a fucking stupid name is Susu anyway? There's this other great moment where Paul sort of uses this anecdote to make a veiled dig at Susu. And Susu calls him out on it. He's like, mate, you just insulted me. And Jessica is just like, she just comes to Paul's defense and she's just like, actually, I think you'll find my son was just telling a generic story. So if you like read insult into it, that's on you. Like, way to self-roast yourself, mate. There's a lot of really great digs at Susu. He's a fuckwit too. Fuck though, okay, I've been rambling for hours. I need to wrap this up. So halfway through dinner, Leto is called away on urgent business, and later he sends a message to Jessica saying, it's chill, don't worry. We found a missing transport, which had been hijacked by a Harkonnen agent, and they were shipping in laser guns, which I can only assume is short for laser gun. And we learned through Jessica that laser guns can cut through any substance. So it's pretty much just like a projectile lightsaber. But if they collide with a shield, it sets off an explosion. And the explosion, it might be just like small and reasonably contained, or it could be like huge and like atomic, and there's no way to know. Like, it's just totally random. It could be one or the other or anything in between. So the Harkonnens could potentially just fuck up their shit with one laser gun blast because the Atreides Manor is fully shielded. And actually, that's something that I wanted to talk about as well. I haven't really mentioned this before, but the Atreides are really big on shields. They've just got shields everywhere. They've got personal shields. They've got like, you know, they've got shields all around their manor, and they've got like, you know, they had shields on all their ships and equipment as well. But they can't use their shields on Arrakis in the open desert because like the vibrations of them or whatever will just attract sandworms to them. And now she's learning, okay, well, we also can't have, we can't like use the shields around the manor because like it could just set off a fucking atomic explosion potentially if the Harkonnens come for us. The fact that they like prize shields, they prize defense over offense is really cool to me. It reminds me actually of Steven Universe, because if you're familiar with Steven Universe, Steven is a crystal gem, and as most of the main characters in the show are, and all of the crystal gems can summon their own weapon from their own body. It might be a whip, or it might be a spear, or it might be like all bunch of different weapons. But Stephen, what he summons from himself is a shield. And he has like this special power as well. He can like put himself and his friends inside this protective, impenetrable protective bubble. And I just think that that's such a beautiful quality of Stephen's, that he, you know, he's defensive, and he is always looking to make friends. He's always trying to turn enemies into allies. He's always trying to find a peaceful resolution rather than resorting to violence. And I see a lot of that in the Atreides kind of ethos. I would wonder actually if Steven Universe was inspired by Dune. Like maybe Steven is a Paul analog. We'll have to see as we see more of Paul develop. I'm gonna leave it there. Just the one chapter today, because it was a really big one. It was just one chapter, but it was very dense. There was a lot going on, a lot to chew on. So yeah, I think we can leave it there, and we'll get on with it later. Alrighty, so we're into chapter 17. Jessica is woken in the middle of the night. There's some commotion going on outside her room. And immediately, she's just on the security cameras checking on Paul. But he's fine. He's down in the basement because he's has to hide out in the basement because they're worried about the Harkonnen laser guns going atomic. I mean, if there's a fucking atomic level blast, I don't know if hiding in the basement's gonna quite cut it. But anyway, he's fine, he's asleep. So whatever's going on, it's not loud enough to wake him up down there. So she's like, all right, cool. Next, she's checking on Leto's rooms, and he's not there. So she's just like, all right, he's probably not even in the house. He's probably not involved in this. Interesting sidebar. Calm down, mate. Interesting sidebar. We have established that previously, Jessica generally doesn't even dine with the Duke. She prefers to just dine in her own chambers. And now we also find out that they don't even sleep in the same room as each other, which, I don't know, maybe that calls for some unpacking. My first instinct when we were introduced to Leto and Jessica was that their relationship seemed toxic as fuck. And I don't think that anymore. Certainly, there are elements of their relationship which seem maybe a little toxic. They've areas that they could work on together, but in general, like I can see that there's also genuine love and respect between them. So I don't know if the fact that they have like separate dining rooms and separate bedrooms is a sign of something more between them that they need to sort out, or maybe it could just be, nobles with fuck tons of money and living in houses with many, many rooms. I mean, Lord knows, I would probably also want my own room if I had money to burn. So anyway, it turns out this commotion is Duncan Idaho. We've found out in a previous chapter that Duncan is a big patron of the local escorts. And it looks like he's visited the knock shop and has come back blind drunk. all of these like servants are sort of like milling about him and like trying to shush him up, and he's just like, ah, get out of my fucking way. And, oh, sorry, mate. So Jessica steps in and she gets Mappers to brew him some coffee to try and sober him up, and he refuses to drink the coffee. So she loses her patience with him, steps right up to him and just slaps him across the face, orders him to fuck off to his room. And this slap kind of, it seems to sort of sober him up enough that he realizes who he's speaking to. And he's just like, I don't take orders from fucking Harkonnen spies, ya bitch. And after that, you could hear a pin drop. All of the servants just sort of like turn to her in silence, and they're like, oh, awkward. Yeah, and she's just like standing there in total shock and just processing this, like, okay, right. This actually explains a lot, because Leto had been distancing himself from her in public and just kind of giving her the cold shoulder, and she'd noticed it, and Leto was assuming that other people would notice it, just to try and give credence to the Harkonnen plot. And this is actually better than I was expecting. I was worried that he would go way more extreme, like a bit of a cold shoulder, whatever. We can get over that. We can get past that. I thought he was gonna have her like fucking flogged or some bullshit, or no, it's fine. They'll get past this. Like a little bit of couples counselling, they'll be right as rain. Well, assuming they get a chance to do couples counselling after what happens in the next chapter, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So anyway, all of the pieces are just sort of like falling into place for her now, and she's just like, fuck this for a joke. I want to see Hawat immediately. Like, fucking chop suey, get him to me. So Hawat comes to her chambers, and at first he's a little bit cagey, you know, but she's just like, spare the bullshit, please. Let's just have a straight fucking conversation. So they drop all pretense, and they speak honestly with each other. And she's just like, please, Hawat, let's be logical about this. And he's just like, my entire life is logic. What else you got? Like, logic is what brought me to this conclusion. So next, she's just like, all right, well, I know you are actually a men's rights activist, and you are just prejudiced against me because I'm Bene Gesserit. And he actually, like, he admits this. He's just like, yeah, I might be a men's rights activist, but better that than being a fucking Bene Gesserit witch. Ooh, burn. Jessica just has no time for this bullshit. She's just like, we are better off as allies. There is a spy. We know there's a spy. So, like, you're fucking things up by, like, thinking that it's me, because it's not me, which means that the real spy is like going undetected, and like, and she's right. This is exactly, you know, what the Harkonnen's plan is. And Hawat is just like, yeah, well, of course, that's exactly what a Harkonnen spy would say, isn't it? So she's just like, all right, no, nothing else is getting through to him. I'm gonna have to like unveil the big guns. So as he's getting up to leave, she turns the voice on him. She's just like, I have not dismissed you yet, Thufir. And Thufir drops like a sack of walnuts. And he's shook to the core. It's described as like her voice entered his mind with the exact same cadence as one of his own thoughts. He couldn't help but obey her. So she's just like, you see? If I wanted to, I could have the Duke wrapped around my little finger. Go fuck yourself that I'm the spy. Like, I don't need to bother sneaking around behind his back. If I wanted to, I would have brought this place down from the inside a long time ago. So like, count your blessings, realize that I am a better ally than I am an enemy. And if I was your enemy, like it would have been over for you a long time ago. Hawat had no idea of the extent that the Bene Gesserit command. I don't know that anyone really does. I know the Bene Gesserit's whole MO is that they want to be the power next to the throne. You know, they want to be subtly influencing the course of human history from the sidelines without attracting attention to themselves. But like, what is their official role? Like, what do people think that they're doing there? And Thufir is just like, if you can do this shit, like, why don't you like take out the Duke's enemy? And she's just like, okay, well, first of all, I'm not going to do all of the Duke's work for him. Second of all, that's not what I'm here for. Like, if I go around like flaunting my Bene Gesserit powers, then the cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows that the Bene Gesserit can do this kind of shit. That's not what we're about. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm operating from the sidelines because that's what I'm meant to do. That's how I'm most effective in the long run. That's how the Bene Gesserit as an institution are effective. So Jessica's like, she's really shown her hand here, but she realizes that she has to. She knows she needs to get Thufir on side. We know that she's going to be teaching Paul this, which that is going to be a very nifty little trick for him to have in his arsenal when the time comes. And still, after all of this, Thufir doesn't trust her. He's just like, well, I remain unconvinced. But he does begrudgingly pay her respect. He's like, okay, like, perhaps I'm not a men's rights activist anymore, but I'm still like a bit of a chauvinist. So, you know, it's not ideal, but it's something. So then we're into chapter 18. This one is quite a short one, but oh, ducky, it packs a punch. Leto has just come home. It's been over 2 days actually since he slept. The poor guy, he's just like, he's run ragged. And he's received an anonymous note which reads, "A column of smoke by day, a pillar of fire by night." And neither he nor I knows what that means, but I cannot imagine it's anything good, which perhaps leads into what happens next. So he knows like the cat's out of the bag with Jessica. He doesn't need to fuck around with pretending to suspect her anymore. So he's on his way to go and see her and explain himself and, you know, grovel and beg for forgiveness, I suppose. But on his way, he stumbles upon the corpse of the smuggler. What was the smuggler's name? Like, I thought he was going to be a bigger character, but, you know, like he was sort of introduced as a person of interest. So yeah, I thought his story would be ongoing, but no, apparently he's just born to die. So tip one out for Esmar Chewik. And no idea what he was doing. Yeah, like whatever he came to do, he didn't get time to do it, unfortunately. And then next, he finds Mappers, who's been stabbed in the back and she dies in his arms, which like is just so devastating. I thought that Mappers had a much bigger role to play, but no, out with the old, in with the new. All of a sudden, Yue comes out of the shadows and he darts Leto in the neck and paralyzes him. Yue explains what's going on. He's just like, I'm taking you off to see the Baron. I'm sorry, no offense, I like you, but I gotta. To make up for it though, I am going to smuggle Paul and Jessica to safety. There's no reason that they have to die as well, but you are as good as dead. I can't save you, so, you know, I had to. Paul and Jessica, they're going to be smuggled out to see the Fremen because at least there is no chance whatsoever that the Fremen will betray them to the Harkonnens, because the Fremen fucking hate the Harkonnens and they love Paul, so yeah. And he goes on to explain that he's replacing one of Leto's teeth with a fake one which is filled with poison gas. And he's just like, because I'm not going to get close enough to the Baron. You're the only chance of doing this. So when the Baron's right up in your face having a good gloat, you need to bite down hard on this tooth and that'll release the poison gas and you'll go down swinging, basically. Your death will have meaning, yeah, and purpose and consequence. That's the only thing that I can do for you. And I hope it does not seem promising for poor Leto. It really does. It seems like his number's up. But then again, you never know. He might turn it around, but
Look, I mean, I think on some level, Leto has to die. I think the ground kind of has to be swept clean for Paul, because ultimately this isn't Leto's story. This is Paul's story. This is the classic hero's journey. You know, the mentor has to bite it so that Paul can kind of come into his full power and his full actualization. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have too much hope for Leto coming up. But fuck, it is still very early. It is early days in the book. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. This is real hectic. So I'm going to keep reading and I will get back to you with my thoughts. Guys, that was cooked. That could not have gone worse. Oh no! Oh my god. Shit fucking hit the fan. I'm not gonna do like a proper review right now, because I just read like 5 chapters in a row or something, because I just couldn't stop. And I basically made it to the end of book 1. And if I just stopped with the chapter with Duke Leto dying, I probably would have just been able to like to go through with it. But then I was a fucking idiot and I read 1 chapter past that, and like fucking Paul just had this like fucking revelatory acid trip in the desert, like mind expansion. And I just don't have it in me at the moment. I'm so tired and I'm so like emotionally raw, but I wanted to do like a really quick little vlog to talk out my initial reactions, because just while like the blood's still pumping, because oh my god, that was so cooked. It was so cooked. I can't believe, like, like I was expecting Leto to die, but I wasn't expecting him to die like this early. Not this early. Like at the end of Act 1, basically. And he just died for nothing as well. Like literally for nothing. He didn't even get to he didn't take out the Baron. Oh god, that was so frustrating. I was actually on the edge of my seat reading that whole chapter. I was leaning forward. I was sweating. I wanted him to kill the Baron so badly. I really thought that he might. Like I dared to hope that he might just kill the Baron, and then the main villain could be Piter and what's his fucking nephew's name? The new Baron. It could have been Piter and the new Baron. What is his nephew's name? My mind's not working properly right now. That last chapter just sort of like sucked my soul out through every fucking pore of my body. I'm so drained. God, this is a good book. Like I'm so invested. I love these characters. My heart has broken and my wig has soared to the heavens. I just don't have words. Oh my god. Oh my god. And the Baron, just like that last little bit of that chapter where the Baron was like, oh yeah, fucking send a boy to my room and drug him up. Oh, and like make sure it's that one that looks like Paul as well. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm furious. I hate the Baron. Okay, but like, okay, yeah, Paul got out, Jessica got out. Oh fuck! And I forgot to mention, like in the last chapter, that she's pregnant as well. Like, now is not a time that you want to be pregnant, but I guess she has this last little thing of Leto. Especially because, like, I don't know, is Paul like even Paul anymore? Is he just gonna go like full fucking like brand star? I hope not. Like, I hope that he still has like humanity to him and personality. Because if he's just like this blank slate, that will disappoint me. All right. All right, all right. I will stop this now, but I'll tomorrow when I can gather my thoughts a bit, I'll do a proper like summary of the 500,000 million things that I just experienced. This is a good book, though. I'm really glad. I'm glad that I'm doing this. This is good. So yeah, okay. Good night. Wish me sweet dreams.